Welcome to the EW Podcast. I'm your host, Eric White. Today's episode is a conversation I had with my friend, Allyson Westervelt, regarding habit building. Allyson is a nutritionist with a personal training certification. She is also the creator of the Ritual Body, which is a method that helps people connect with daily habits and transform them into meaningful rituals. In this episode, we chat about the ritual body and the benefits of having rituals throughout the day. We talk about choosing habits that work, getting over bad habits, and what a ritual might look like. We also discuss if it's important to have a goal for your rituals or if you can do them just to do them. If you're interested in connecting with Allyson, you can find links to her online in the notes for this episode. So, here is my conversation with Allyson Westervelt about the ritual body. All right, I'm here with Allyson Westervelt. She's a nutritionist with a certification in personal training and the creator of the Ritual Body. She's also a good friend of mine, and I'm happy she's joining me today. So thanks for being here, Allyson.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Cool. So we're going to talk about rituals throughout your day and how looking at your life as a series of rituals can be beneficial to accomplishing goals or just living a centered life, right?
Yeah, definitely. And really the way I kind of came about this was thinking about the importance of the things we do in a day. And I know a lot of people have, their morning ritual, and for a lot of people, they start their day with that. And if for some reason their morning ritual gets thrown off kilter or whatever, it can kind of throw off the rest of their day. And so before I really started the Ritual Body, I was thinking about how I could improve my morning. And I'm not a big coffee drinker. I was trying to find alternatives to how to start my morning with something that felt really special to me. And so I really started with my morning ritual. I started drinking mud water. I started, daily gratitude and affirmations. And once I started to kind of hone in on my morning ritual, I started thinking about an evening ritual. I started to think about what I would do before working out, before each meal and cooking and grocery shopping. And the idea just kind of came together of how can I create a better life for myself with a little bit more predictability, with a little bit more structure, and kind of thinking about it as like a series of rituals.
For like the working out thing, for example, did you find that having that ritual set up beforehand made you more likely to go through with the workout?
Totally. So, I think anyone who's ever worked out at a gym, getting to the gym is like the hardest part. And then once you're there, you're usually good to go. So I just made it more, I made my pre-gym or my pre-workout ritual feel more special. It would be about, making sure that like I had the right clothes picked out, or the right shoes, the right socks, the right pre-workout beverage, knowing that I would have my protein with me afterwards. And I kind of had all these little things to look forward to that made the getting ready to go to the gym part more enjoyable. And I found that it became this habit, and I just do it. And now getting to the gym, or back when we could kind of go to the gym, it just flows now. Yeah.
So can you describe what you mean by life as a series of rituals, which is going to be the name of this episode here?
Yeah. So I think we can think about it as a series of rituals, but I think it's also that life includes mini rituals. And in that it's really, again, going back to that morning ritual, which I refer to as the rise ritual, for the Ritual Body, and how important that is. And it's about breaking up your day into those micro moments. It's what can you take in your day that could be really special or really meaningful or really impactful, and start to break that down into little moments, and build up a better life for yourself. Build up one that has some routine, some structure. There's a lot of crazy stuff in the world that we can't control, but you can control making yourself that morning cup of coffee.
Some of the things I've heard from friends about literature on building habits, or, stacking habits. And we were talking before the podcast, and I have not made a habit of reading that kind of stuff yet, but you have, right? And is this idea that you have with the ritual body kind of similar to that, where you're stacking small wins in order to achieve something larger?
Yeah, definitely. So one book that we talked about is The Power of Habit. And in that, the book talks about, small wins that you can kind of get in your day. And really what this is so by doing a few of these small wins here and there, it really sets off a chain reaction. But what it's doing for us mentally is actually way more important. As you complete these small things, like flossing or brushing your teeth or turning on that hall light, it releases a little bit of dopamine in your brain. So you're actually getting positive feedback from your body about accomplishing these small wins. And from that, you tend to start to seek that out, right? Your body, in the same way that, eating a cookie releases certain chemicals in your brain and you get kind of that happy moment from it. Same too by kind of completing these small little tasks. And so it's the same idea. It's how can you also break down like the bigness of your day-to-day life and how overwhelming or intimidating that can be for some of us, breaking it down into really small pieces, like smallest atomic units, and successfully completing like little moments and getting that good biofeedback. And I think it also it's like, okay, if you have a dirty kitchen, right? And you're like, okay, I got to go clean the kitchen. It could be a really overwhelming task. Whereas you're like, okay, I'm going to start with unloading the dishwasher. I'm going to load the dishwasher. I'm going to wipe down the counters. And before you know it, your kitchen's clean. And it was all because of you changed your perspective. You changed the way that you were thinking about it. And, that's kind of like a microcosmic view of rituals, but the same goes for your day-to-day life, is how can you break it down so it's not just this, it's not like I woke up one day and I'm like, I have to be an adult now. It's like, okay, well, no, I got to pay some bills and, get car insurance. There's like little things that I had to do that, quote unquote, have made me an adult, I guess. But, a little less intimidating, a little less overwhelming, and a lot more doable.
So whenever you're building a ritual and you start to become accustomed to those small wins, does it become more difficult to feel that rush, that dopamine release, as it becomes more of a habit and less of a new thing?
I think that's a really good question. I think that it comes... I think it can. I think it totally can. For me, it's kind of like when I'm going back to that morning ritual, I have those chores that I have to get done because I know that my mud water is waiting for me. And that's a moment in my day that is just so enjoyable. And it's like a piece of my whole day where I can just kind of find stillness. And so I look forward to it. But yeah, I would say that, my bedtime routine maybe isn't as glorious, although I do wake up the next morning and it's great that I had a good night's sleep. I wear a smartwatch and I take so much pride in when I wake up and I see a sleep score that's like high, yeah. But I would think, I think it could, but for me, I haven't gotten to that point yet where, I'm not feeling that same sense, but I'm also really intentional with my rituals. I think that's another thing that can benefit people, is that being intentional with your day and really thinking about how your small wins can impact you. And, I feed my dogs twice a day, every single day. But I also know that that's like the most important part of their day. They are so pumped when I feed them. Yeah. And so seeing that, I get really excited to see how happy my dogs get. And, we have a ritual with them. They have to sit down and they wait and then they look at me and we get eye contact and I say, okay. And they're just so stoked to eat. Mm-hmm. And, that brings me a lot of joy too. So I think it's kind of finding the joy in those little wins, even if maybe you don't have the same, amount of dopamine being released. It's still tiny joys that you can kind of, seek out for yourself.
Right. Yeah. It's about where your focus is. I like how you said that, as long as you maintain the intention and the awareness, I guess, of what you're doing, you're able to still maintain that same level of interest as you make it a habit.
Yeah. And I think it's about finding joy in little things too, because, some days my dogs bark all day and they get on my last damn nerve. And so I want to feed them just so they can be quiet. But then I'm also reminded that I'm happy I have their companionship. And, I think it's all just in how you can choose to look at, your life around you.
You mentioned how the mud water at the end of your rise ritual, that's right, is a moment you look forward to. Do you think it's important to have the culmination of a series of rituals be some sort of reward that you can look forward to? Or did you structure it purposely like that?
I didn't structure it purposely like that. I never really thought that mud water would be such a joyful moment in my day. I mean, I went without it. So I've been drinking it for probably 2 months now. And I tried it just because I wanted a coffee alternative. I was looking for something that maybe had a little bit more, oomph to it. The adaptogens in it are pretty amazing. But I look forward so much to even like preparing it. Like I have a special way that I make it. But I didn't set it up that way. I had no idea that it would bring me as much joy as it did, or that it does. But I think the other thing that it does too is it's also the pivotal moment in my rise ritual where I take a full pause. I go and sit in my backyard. I write down my affirmations. I do some visualization. I write down my gratitude. And that really puts me in a headspace to manage my day. Even if it's a super stressful day, even if all the bad news in the world is happening, I took those, 10, 15, 20 minutes of my day and I just really found good. And I did it over a cup of mud water, and it just it wasn't intentionally set that way, but I'm so glad that I've created that structure for myself, and it's something that I return to day after day.
How important is it that someone chooses a series of rituals for their life that relates to their goal?
Yeah, I think, so one thing I really work with my clients on are types of goals, right? So we talk about outcome goals and we talk about behavior goals. An outcome goal is like, I want to lose 10 pounds. And that's great. Like it's a big picture goal, but I think it's like, I want to clean my kitchen. It's so overwhelming that you don't really know where to start. So by breaking that down into, I'm going to walk for 10 minutes, or 30 minutes every day in the evening, or I'm going to bring my lunch to work, or, making it a smaller ritual, I think, or a smaller task within the ritual makes it a lot more doable. But I also think it's about the type of goal that you're hoping to set. And so I think that's why there's the importance of behavior goal over an outcome goal.
Can you distinguish between those two, behavior goal and outcome goal?
Yeah. So an outcome goal is really something you can't necessarily control. I want to lose 10 pounds. Like that's kind of like a wish. Like I wish to lose 10 pounds. I hope it'll happen. But a behavior goal is an actionable step or an actual goal that you can really achieve in control. So I want to make more meals at home is a outcome goal, but a behavior goal would be, I'm going to look up recipes. I'm going to find 3 new recipes online, and then I'm going to make a list and go to the grocery store, and I'm going to buy those items on the list. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of your difference. Is an outcome goal is not really in your control. It's a big picture type of thing. But a behavior goal is really something that you can control. It's your behavior. Do you think that a goal is necessary for coming up with a series of rituals for your day? I think intrinsically we all want to thrive. And so I think the extent to which we want to thrive will help us build those goals around it. But I don't necessarily think that you have to have a goal. So I don't necessarily have a rise. I didn't intentionally create my rise ritual because I wanted to have a better day. I really just wanted to have a morning ritual. Mm-hmm. But it has led to so much more. And I think my ability to shed that type of light for my clients about really connecting with themselves, finding greater purpose in their day, helping them kind of ascend to new heights, is really the focus of the ritual body. It's the importance of rituals, but it's also the meaning behind them.
Yeah, I was reminded of athletes after I asked this question, and how it's super common for athletes to have rituals before games, or the week of a game or something, and they're doing it just to be them best selves in a game, right? So you Totally. Can kind of look at your day the same way of like, I just want to be my best self today, so I'm going to go through these 5 things every morning that I know will get me in that zone. And it becomes kind of not necessarily a trick you're playing on your brain, but you're taking advantage of the way your brain works to put you in a good space. Yeah. And I think it also creates that intention too. And I think that's, I think we've heard it so many times, like living your life with intention, living your life with purpose. And then just breaking that down into moments that you can achieve to have that level of purpose or reason for being. I was really good at staying on or keeping my morning rituals before the coronavirus pandemic, and then this whole thing happened, and it was really difficult for me to get back into some of the routines that I had set for myself. What kind of recommendations do you have for people when they fall out of their rituals?
Yeah, I think if 2020 teaches us nothing else, it's that we just have to expect the unexpected. I mean, like, there was no way any of us could have known that our world would have been flipped upside down, in March. And I think it's a pretty decent metaphor for a lot of things in life, that you're going to get stuff thrown your way that you totally couldn't expect. And to that, I think there's a couple different ways that you can kind of navigate re-engaging with your ritual. I think there's a lot of power in writing things down, being able to go back and reflect on it, go back and remember why you wanted to do something. I tell my clients a lot this with goals is, we write our goals down so that we can come back to it. And it's the same with your rituals. I think writing down your ritual, and returning to it and remembering why it felt so good, remembering the little tasks that you were able to complete, just re-engaging with those is a really good way to kind of reset that ritual. But I think it also starts with self-awareness. I think even being able to recognize that you've fallen out of your ritual is huge. Because that's kind of, it's the first step to admitting you have a problem, right? Yeah, is like that recognition. Sure. Because I think for a lot of people, you can lose that ritual just because so many things in life have happened. And so being able to even acknowledge that you lost it is a good step to re-engage with it.
What about the role of like shame and guilt in maintaining these rituals? Because I'm speaking from my experience again, whenever I realized that I had fallen out of my routines, there was a little sense of guilt of like, oh man, you had all this time and you've just been wasting it looking at coronavirus news every morning, getting so absorbed that you forget to meditate. How do you recommend people deal with that shame and guilt and overcome it? Yeah,
I think you got to give yourself a little bit of grace. You're human. I don't do my morning ritual every day. Like, had a late night on Friday and I didn't have any sense of morning on Saturday. Yeah. I think you just got to give yourself grace. You got to totally be okay with being the human that you are, and, be willing to re-engage with it as you go. But, I'm definitely someone who my conscious weighs pretty heavy on me. So I can completely, align with you in terms of that feeling of that guilt. But as I've gotten older, I've learned to try to have a little bit more grace with myself, understand that I'm going to make mistakes, a lot of them, like so many of them. But it's just about how can I be better tomorrow than I was today.
Mm-hmm. By looking at maybe your morning or your evening or some other time of day as a series of rituals, that could maybe make a schedule feel rigid, and it could possibly make someone feel as though they have this kind of to-do list within their day of already large to-do lists. Yeah. Do people risk losing spontaneity in their lives by creating these series of rituals? And is that a bad thing or not? If yeah.
So the big aspect of the ritual body is the most important rituals of your day, or the most important moments of your day, become rituals, like rising, resting, nourishing, moving your body. And I think for the most part, a lot of people do those on a regular basis anyway. So ideally, those rituals don't feel like chores. And because they're not typically strung one after another, you hopefully don't feel like they're tasks, or they're a grueling task on your to-do list that you just have to check off that they're enjoyable. But I think it could come down to a point where you're like, okay, I got to feed the dogs again because I can't enjoy my mud water until I feed the dogs. Yeah. So I think it can, but I also think that gives you a good chance to reset your rituals. Is feeding the dogs before my mud water the most effective way to start my day? Like, should I feed my dogs after it when I've had a little bit of me time and it doesn't feel like I have all these chores? And that's the cool thing about the ritual body, is that your rituals aren't set in stone. They're as adaptive as you are. They're as dynamic as you are, and they can be changed. And that's a big thing for my clients too. Is how we can continue to evolve based on what they're hoping to achieve or what they're seeking.
If someone was feeling as though their ritual was becoming a burden on them, that you would recommend re-examining those rituals?
Yeah, definitely. I think life is pretty wild, and we're constantly faced with new things. I mean, for a lot of our friends, they went from working in an office every day to working from home. And so you have to kind of change your ritual there. You're no longer maybe having that 20-minute drive where you can listen to music, either to or from work, and kind of get in that right headspace or decompress from that headspace. So you have to really kind of start to rethink that ritual, because now you're maybe going from your bedroom to your office. And so, yeah, just being able to edit your rituals, knowing that your rituals aren't all knowing, that they can evolve with you as much as you're evolving as a human.
Mm-hmm. About 2 weeks ago, I totally restructured my day and kind of went into my schedule and made a somewhat rigid, list of things that I want to do throughout the morning that kind of surround my work day, and even break it up. And one thing I found by doing that was that it actually freed my nights up. Like, by having everything that I wanted to do kind of laid in front of me and very visible of the time that I was going to do it and, what I was going to do, I felt like I was utilizing my time way better. And then in the evenings after work, I didn't feel like I had to run around and like read however much I was going to read, or look this up, or spend time doing this. Do you find that to be a similar thing with your work? Yeah,
definitely. And I've been reading a lot about how the brain functions with habits and type of rituals. And when you're most productive, and how to kind of implement or integrate your rituals into your day, based on your brain waves. And in the morning, when you're first kind of waking up, your brain's in these alpha waves, and it's like not the prime time to be going on social media or be taking in a ton of information. And so I've started to rearrange my rituals around that because of how my brain's processing information. And so I think it goes the same with figuring out what's important in your day and when to do it. And I agree. I think if you know what your day is going to be like before you get there, it's way easier to kind of plan it out. It's way easier for you to plan it out, so that your brain's functioning at its highest level to get these things done. And the less you procrastinate, then the more time you're going to have in the evening. That definitely has been a result for me too, is that I get to actually enjoy the time and space between the end of my work day and before my rest ritual really happens. And it's almost just a moment of almost like do whatever I want, And so it's a pretty, it's actually a pretty cool, result of it that I don't think I ever really connected with, but it's a pretty good call out. Yeah, definitely.
If someone is listening and they don't feel as though they have rituals set up in their day, but they're interested in getting started with implementing something, how would you recommend they go about finding rituals that will suit their needs and their style?
Yeah, I think, again, it's kind of starting with that self-awareness, is watch what you do in a day. I think people actually find that they have rituals that exist already, that they just haven't been paying attention to. I mean, I told my dad the other day about his morning ritual. And I said, every day since I was little, you wake up and you turn on that damn coffee grinder every morning at like 6 a.m. And he was like, well, yeah, I got to start my day with coffee, And he, I went and visited them the other day, and the first thing he did at 6 o'clock in the morning was turn on that damn coffee grinder. And I walked out there and I was like, Dad, you got to change your ritual. And he was like, no, this is mine. This is a really important part of my day. But then all the little things that he did afterwards, I called him out, and I saw that he created this ritual that he's been doing for like 40 years. Wow. And, he just has been doing it. He didn't realize it was a ritual. And I think that same goes for a lot of people, is if you kind of take stock of how you live your day, I think the body naturally feeds off of some kind of predictability, some kind of routine. So start by paying attention, write down how you want it to evolve. Maybe in the morning you want to have more time to read the news. Can you carve out 5 extra minutes, 10 extra minutes by, getting up earlier, or grinding the coffee beans the night before, whatever it is, so that you can create that. And I think writing it down and then living it, almost like creating that ritual to-do list where you write it down every night. You decide what you're going to do. You kind of cross it off. You get that little burst of dopamine, and you just do it till it becomes habit.
I was just struck with the thought as you were talking about how people probably already have rituals set up in their day, that I was just thinking about bad habits that I have that are kind of rituals, you know, and looking at the news was one that got me super excited to talk about this week, because that was something, especially this week, that's really been kind of fucking with my head, is like waking up and just bombarding myself with news or with other people's opinions on Instagram, and it was messing up my whole day, but it had become a ritual of sorts. Is that something, how would you recommend someone deal with like a bad habit that has become a ritual?
Yeah, so I deal with this a lot with my clients, not so much about reading news, but more so, when they get done with a conference call, they'll go to the kitchen and grab a snack. And I mean, all we're doing these days are conference calls. So that means, my client would be having 6 or 8 snacks a day on top of their, 3 or 4 meals that they're having. When I don't tell my clients, like, don't have that snack, it's how do you feel after you've had that snack? What's driving that feeling for you to have that snack? Because typically, I talked to my client and she said, my calls are so stressful. And her go-to to kind of fix that was to go and have, something out of the fridge, to the point where even her non-stressful calls would end with her going to the kitchen because it was right there and she'd been doing it for a few months, that her brain associated the end of a call with a snack.
It's Pavlov's dogs, right?
Totally. Yeah. And so I challenged her when she got off the calls to write it down, write how she was feeling before she went to the fridge. And she said it helped a lot, because a lot of times she would write down, it was write down, like, recap the meeting, right? Like, meeting notes are super important anyway. If no one's sending them out, try that. So she would recap the meeting, and then she would kind of write down a couple notes personally for herself of how she was feeling after that meeting. And it helped her cut down her habit of going to the kitchen because she was able to redirect her mind. For you, it's like, again, it goes back to those alpha waves in the morning. Like, your brain does not want to take in all that information, and the fact that you recognize, again, going back to that self-awareness, that was totally fucking up your day.
Oh yeah. It took one really bad night though. I think it was like Wednesday. Lauren was like, "What is wrong with you?" Because I was just so depressed and I just felt so drained. And I was like, man, I spent the first 20 minutes of my day switching between news and Instagram and just like getting super, like, I don't know what the word is, but overthinking everything, to the point where it was stressing me out. So.
Yeah. So I think, you were able to recognize that it goes back to that self-awareness. You were able to create that association between an overwhelming amount of just like shitty news in the world and a shitty day, a shitty mindset for the rest of the day. Not everyone has that kind of self-awareness. But it is kind of taking stock and, getting my client to pause, getting her to realize, how she was feeling going into these meetings. And then also like tailoring her day so she doesn't have 8 meetings in a day. Can she have no meeting Wednesday where she just can work and crank out, deliverables that are not, they're not contingent on anybody else's feedback or anything like that. And just trying to think about your day and how you want to live it to be your most productive, your most happy, but still get the things done. I mean, I hope you're still reading the news, but maybe you're reading it at like lunchtime,
Yeah. I think for me, it has been just finding more quiet in my morning and giving my brain, like you said, a chance to wake up and a chance to get that cup of coffee in the morning and do a quick meditation, or, I've been trying to write in the morning. So doing those things before. Yeah, I spend a lot of the day listening to the news, honestly. It's kind of, but I like what you said of suggesting to your client that she recap the meeting immediately after and not give in to the habit. So it's like you want to find that bad habit that you're not stoked with and kind of interrupt it, right? Yeah.
Or even for you, like maybe you spend 5 minutes reading really daunting like heavy news and then spend the next 5 minutes on good news movement, or,
that's a good point.
Like it's finding that balance. It's just like, I'm a huge chicken. I can't watch scary movies. So if I watch something scary or listen to like a scary podcast or something, I immediately have to follow it up with something funny, like New Girl or just Schitt's Creek or, something completely random. So my brain doesn't get stalled out in that kind of like terrifying space.
Yeah. Yep. Sometimes I live there. So you mentioned the power of habit. Mm-hmm. What are some other resources that you might recommend for people interested?
Yeah, the power of habit is great. I think it gives us a really good look at how valuable habits can be. But another one is the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And then most recently, I just picked up The Power of Ritual. And I believe the book's been around for a while, but the feedback from it is how you can kind of create rituals during like a time of quarantine, during COVID, and how you can still have special moments when our world feels pretty upside down. I've just started. I'm like 2 pages in, but the reviews on it were really great. And so I'm eager to dive into that.
What about other specific tools that can help people in sticking to their rituals?
Yeah, I think the program that I'm developing right now, the Ritual Body, is a really great way to get a customized plan. I have steps and tools to really help break down your day. And as long as you're willing to do some of the homework, I can really help build a pretty good plan. Again, with my background in personal training and nutrition, we can focus on helping you live a healthier life too, whether it's moving your body more or just eating better, but also just, starting your day off better. It's really important to me that my clients feel their best, but feeling their best is so much more than just getting a workout in. It's really getting into that good headspace where you can totally be the best version of yourself, where you can be more present, you can have more time with your friends and family, you can be kinder to yourself, you can do the work of visualizing a better better day for yourself, a better life for yourself. I think that's really the core of the Ritual Body, is how can I help my clients really connect better to themselves. And for those of us that are maybe not ready to jump in on a program, it's, how can you just be more thoughtful in your day about how you're starting it, or what things you want to accomplish, and taking the action of writing things down. That's a great place to start, just kind of connecting with yourself a little bit more and driving that self-awareness.
Just to wrap this up, can you just kind of paint a picture of what it's like to start working with you? If someone were to go in the show notes and reach out to you, what should they expect in the first kind of interaction with you?
Yeah. First interactions always start with a call. I want to get to know my clients. I want to know, it's really easy when we start from like a nutrition perspective, is what are you eating in your day? But, cause so many of us consume food all of us consume food, that it's a really good jumping off point. So I tend to start with the nutrition conversation, but that flows really well into a conversation about how well you're sleeping. And then some of your goals that you want to achieve with, working with me. And for a lot of my clients, if they don't know the goals that they want to achieve, it's a really good exercise for us to do together. But above all, I want my clients to feel better and maybe lose that weight or increase their activity. But my goal and my level of achievement with my clients really comes down to how good they feel. And so if my clients come to me and they're pretty down and out or discouraged, that the constant check-ins that we have really are elevating them and getting the results that they need. So it starts with a simple conversation about food, but it flows into something so much bigger and so much more meaningful, that's really centered on my clients and helping them just achieve that happiness.